What's up, everybody? Circus here, coming at you with an update to our synchro staple video. The one we have on the channel right now is a little out of date as the game progresses. Actually, every video we make is out of date about 2 days later, but this one's a couple months old, so I thought we'd go ahead and get this one updated. I brought Ryan because he loves synchros. He
It's the
synchros in his
synchro
free
era.
time.
Always.
Yeah.
Synchro summon.
Always. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through level by level basically and talk about them. Now, if you're a new player, do not rush out and buy all these immediately.
Hmm.
What you want to do is evaluate what synchro deck you're playing and how these could fit into your strategy because there's a lot of cards here and I don't recommend running out and getting all of them immediately.
Yeah, so we're gonna bring them up and then we're gonna, recommend them. High recommendation, low
Right.
recommendation. And then any notes we have in the end, we'll
Right.
throw them your way.
So in the level 5 category, there's not a whole lot. In the old video, we recommended Armades, but nowadays that is it's so power crept. There's just not a whole lot you can do with it. So if you have it, good for you. But I wouldn't go out of my way to get it. So the only rank or level 5, I'm sorry, that we're recommending is Amatrix because it's a nice generic card and it is typically used in Cristrons, but anybody can use it.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem with level 5 is a lot of decks don't make level 5s right
Hmm.
now. It's very difficult. It takes, the old deck that used to use them a lot was Six Samurai. They had the Fuma being level 1, and then all the other monsters level 4. Very simple to make anything like that. And typically they played one Amtrix or one Armades, depending on what their strategy is. I personally like Amtrix a little more because when it does get summoned, you do put everything in defense mode, which is
Yeah.
very, very powerful in Duel Links, where Armades is more of a, like I'm going to summon and I don't want to swing into your Sphere Kribo Kyroids or anything like that.
Right.
And while those cards are relevant, it's more so that the 2300 body is kind of small and it doesn't help you beat
Right.
the monsters that are on the board, which is currently kind of the big problem, right? Like a Sun Saga, once that's on the board,
Right.
very hard to out with an Armades, but you can
I
out that
just
with an
I just remember
Amtrix.
the days when that was the best synchro to go into.
Yeah.
It's been a while,
Yeah.
but
But yeah, I mean, and just in general, you think of all the decks right now, it's just
yeah,
hard to make a
it's
level 5,
yeah,
period. And on top of that, Samurai Destroyer, which is level 7, is typically better
it's
for
a
the most
better
part.
arm.
So,
Well, with
yeah.
our Sam Destroyer, you have to battle a monster. Where Armades was
Right,
just
right,
when
right.
it attacked.
Yeah, you
But I
just
mean,
swing in.
yeah,
Yeah.
little things like that. Okay, level 6. I'll start with one. So Amatrix, I would say, where would you put that? High
I'd say
recommendation, medium
I'd say low
recommendation,
recommendation. Not many
low.
decks use it right now. If we go back into a meta where there is a deck that spams level 5s, I think it'd go up a little bit. But if you're playing Cristrons, of course, high recommendation. Otherwise, don't worry about
Pass.
it.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one I'm just gonna say right away, low recommendation. Cymuth. This is an old school synchro card. It was hot when it came out because of its effect that when it battles an opponent's monsters, you can banish that monster and this one. But you're really
Hmm.
going 3 for 1 at that point. So it's
Yeah. So the great thing about Sahimoth is it's very difficult to stop this guy from actually getting his effect off. Because once the effect triggers, he is also leaving the field, and most decks, besides like Witchcraft, that's hard for them to time their monster negate where it's not awkward for them to stop him from activating. And once
yeah.
he's off the board, for example, Dark Lords, once he's off the board, he's good to go. Just like World Legacy Clash used to let Desperado effect go
Mhm.
through. Same thing with HTS Behemoth, but it's all built in. The problem is once he's gone, you've used 3 cards just to take out 1 card from your
Right.
opponent. So it's only used in very dire situations. Like I guess to take out Witchcrafter, but even then Witchcrafter has a better monster negate that wouldn't really care about this too much. So,
And we brought
you know,
this one up because you're going to get this one when you're getting other cards on the list. So if you get this
mhm.
card and you need a level 6 to throw in there, this is something you can use.
Yeah, you get this with Fortune Lady Every and Start and all those really good ones. So low recommendation, but you're probably going to get it otherwise going other for the other ones that are high recommendation.
Now, the next one, Archfiend's Call. We put this on those because it's free to play and you can get a prismatic one really easily. So who doesn't want to flex with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really good effect, and there's literally a whole deck that's built around playing this card.
Right,
It's quite powerful, and the fact that it is free to play and it's super simple to get, immediate high recommendation. Why wouldn't you get it?
right.
Even if you don't play that version of the deck where the battle tuned and all that, it's still fine on its own, especially if you have nothing else.
Yeah, because there's a lot of decks. most notably the most popular deck, obviously being Performa Pals with Psychic Wielder in it, can easily go into a level 6. So you want to have a level 6 toolbox, and Archfiend Call is nice because if you know, let's say you're playing against Dark Magician or something, you can be like, "Ooh, I can put this out here because it can't be targeted, so it's not going to
Right.
get
Yeah.
banished." You know, so
Yeah.
it's good in a synchro toolbox situation.
Hmm.
Which is also the next card, Barkion. This is I love this card.
Yeah, this card is a little bit more difficult to bring out because it does require Earth monsters
Yeah,
only.
so it's not generic,
Um,
but
but the tuner wielder, one of the best tuners, one of the best cards in Duel Links, actually, I would say.
yeah,
It's in a very powerful meta deck in Crystron's and other decks.
Performa
Not
Pals. Yeah,
powerful, Performa Pal,
yeah,
Stromberg, etc., etc. So all you really need is just an Earth monster at that point, and you can make Barkion.
yes.
Um, so I would highly recommend this card if you are playing a Earth deck. If not, otherwise, obviously you can't use it, so who cares? But if you do have capability to get an Earth monster, Barkion is amazing, especially in the meta full of trap cards that we're in right now.
Well,
He is
yeah.
so good to have. Just banish two, and you get an
Well,
effect. I mean, when he comes out, you guaranteed at least one negation.
and what's nice is it's just two cards. It's not two monster cards, two trap cards, or
Hmm.
two earth monsters. It's just two cards in your grave. So if you're loading up your grave full of resources, you could have five negates sitting there just waiting.
Yeah.
You know, it's
And just
great.
the fact that Wielder himself, he's such a good synchro card and an Xyz card, so he will be more relevant as the year goes on. You'll find more and more decks as we approach that will actually be able to make this guy, which is super cool.
Yeah. So this would be if you have the resources high recommendation. Otherwise, wait. I guess. I guess.
Yeah, just wait. It'll be
Yeah.
good eventually.
Yeah. Let's see, another six. I think we got one down here. Archfiend
Mhm.
Zombie Skull. This one, this is a zombie one, right?
Yeah, so if you play a zombie deck, Archfiend Zombie Skull and Revive King Hades, they're both kind of in the same the Plague Spreader cards, right?
Right.
Plague Spreader Zombie himself is actually a pretty good card, and will only get better in dueling, so you can summon it that way. But then specifically speaking for Shiranui, you pretty much need to run these cards because the level 2 tuner from the grave lets you bypass the Plague Spreader requirement, and they're both extremely easy and cheap to get. I believe this is a normal, yeah, a normal. I think Hades is either a normal
Right.
or rare, so no reason not to pick them up, and you're probably going to pick them up getting Shiranui anyway, so you should just make sure you have one of each copy.
Yep. Now the next one, just top tier, high
Oh yeah.
recommendation.
Oh yeah.
Bryonak, sorry, Bryonak, Dragon of the Ice Bear. This card is just ridiculous.
I actually, fun fact, used my dream ticket to get a Bryo.
There you go.
So there you go. It's any deck that can make a level 6 plays this card.
Yep.
Having the ability to discard any number to the graveyard from your hand and then bounce on your opponent is very aggressive in getting you lethal, pretty
Yes.
much. So it's really really strong effect. It's an effect that was so strong that it actually had to be changed in the real world. Very rarely does Konami change cards from the physical world because obviously you print a new card with new text and you have an old card with old text, and it's like, which one's legal?
Right.
But that's how powerful it was, and even now is still powerful here in Duel Links. So
What's great
extremely good
about
card,
the
recommend getting it.
Yeah, because what's great is it bounces it back to your hand, right? So if you're hitting an extra
Hmm.
deck monster, that thing goes back to the extra deck, and they have to work to get it back out. It's not like they
And
just can just resummon it, you know?
for a lot of decks, discarding like Crystron's, where this is the most
Right.
relevant, discarding cards like Thristburn, Smyger,
Yep.
Solfefnir, that's even more, that's
You're just
even better for
plussing,
you.
yeah.
So like you're chilling on that. Really good card.
Right. So high recommendation. Next one is a similar card, has different uses.
Mhm.
Coral Dragon. What's cool is this one is also a tuner.
Yeah, so this is another one I would highly recommend as well. Both these cards combined actually will uh, go into another recommended card much further down the list in Onimaru.
Yep.
Spoilers, but we'll get there. Coral Dragon's really, really cool because he's any deck that can make Bryo can also make Coral, and both have different uses for different scenarios. So Coral Dragon, you discard one, you pop one on the field. really good effect. Obviously, if your opponent doesn't have too many threats, or you don't want to go, for example, if Sun Saga's on the board, you want Bryo to return it. If Sun Saga's not on the board, you may want to use a Coral Dragon to pop like a back row, for example,
Yeah.
and you use less resources to do so as well. But yeah, you can also, a lot of people use him to make Animaru, the level 12. If you do this at another level 6, you actually get the Animaru effect even outside of Blackwings, easier than Blackwings, which is hilarious when it happens.
Hmm.
And on top of all that, once he leaves the field, destroyed, return, it doesn't matter. As long as he leaves the field and goes to the graveyard, you get to draw a card on top of
Right.
that. So you
Yeah.
synchro with him, draw a card. He gets destroyed, draw a card. If, whatever happens, you draw a card.
And if you use this, let's say it's a level 6, you use a level 3 with it, and you go into Vermilion Dragon Mech, which is also on our list, you can banish this with the Vermilion effect.
Yeah, it's actually crazy. I've seen, you can do it in the Perform Pal deck or any deck. It's like you go from a wielder play into Coral Dragon, the wielder pops a card, Coral pops a card, you synchro again into either Vermilion Dragon Mech or into Animaru, draw a card. It's like, oh my god, all this advantage, and you're like
Right.
discarding cards.
Exactly.
It's pretty crazy. It's
Yeah.
a synchro tuner is pretty nuts. I didn't expect it to be as good, but the fact that it's, in that multiples of 3, the 3, 6, 9,
Right.
12,
Yep.
that's what makes it insane, because there's so many good synchros. So I always recommend people getting at least
So this
one.
is, I would say this is a high recommendation.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's only going to get better.
Yeah. Let's do the level 7s. We'll start back over here. Sam Destroyer. I mean,
Yeah.
okay, we'll move on to the next one. I mean,
Yeah.
enough
Samurai
said.
Destroyer ends up being the boss monster in any deck he
Right.
goes into. If your deck plays Samurai Destroyer, he's your boss monster. He's insane. He's
Right.
absolutely nuts. I can't believe a rare card, rarity card. Like
Yeah.
that's insane to me. Has a really really good effect whenever he swings. He turns off effects. He doesn't negate. He doesn't like negate.
Right.
And he turns them off. Like when he swings, Casitas is no longer protected. You
Right.
can pop it with offerings. You can do whatever you want. It's actually really nuts when you look at it. This card literally just solos super heavy samurai.
Right.
They can't do anything into him. And your opponent has no choice but to beat over him, because if they destroy him with card effect, he comes right on back.
And the number way to get rid of Sam Destroyer, right? You
What's that?
swing your Every into it.
Oh god. Oh my god. The amount of times people do that. It's so bad. They just forget. They just
Yeah.
assume they're higher and they swing. It's so bad.
Yeah, because it negates the effect. So your
Yeah.
4,200 Every or whatever all of a sudden becomes a 0.
Yeah. Now this card was actually nerfed. Um from what it used to be. What it used to be is when it got bounced back to the extra deck, you could still use the effect to summon a machine from the grave. Can't
Mhm.
do that, unfortunately,
Right.
anymore. But still powerful and in its own right.
Yeah. All right. So we'll move on to the next one, which is one we just brought up, which is Every. We were making fun of it a
Mhm.
little bit, but this is actually a really good card too, because this is one of, like Sam Destroyer, sometimes this just becomes the boss monster for a deck.
Yeah, so before Lightsworns came out, I would actually say, fortunately, Avery was not really a card you'd go for. But since Lightsworn has come out, and as the game kind of continues, this card it's kind of like Necro Valley, right? It's just better in other archetypes than its own archetype.
Right.
It sucks in
Yeah.
its own archetype, to be honest. It's kind of hard to make without the skill. But especially in Lightsworn decks, and any deck that uses the Lightsworn engine, you just toss Every in there and your deck is already just significantly better. Crazy, crazy effect. Amazing recovery and being able to come back constantly. Even back in the day when Dark Lords were meta, just the fact that this was on the field meant Dark Lords had to commit their trap card to stopping Fortune Lady Every. So, it's
Right.
either you just lose your monster negate every turn, or you set your card and get threatened with Cosmic Cyclone. So very, very good card. Definitely recommend getting it for sure.
The one drawback though is it is not completely generic. You have to use a spellcaster monster. So
Right.
so keep that in mind. That's the one
Yeah.
drawback of the card.
Don't play with some blue eyes.
Yeah. Why can't I summon it? All right, next one, Black Rose Dragon. Again, enough said. These level 6s and 7s, most
Yeah.
of them are enough said.
I would argue Black Rose Dragon is the best synchro, period. Like,
Oh god, yeah.
no synchro
It's
card has
right
had
up
as
there,
much of
isn't
an
it?
impact with this one. Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, you could argue this or Six Samurai or Samurai Destroyer, and yeah, both level 7
Well, when
for the most part.
you see the level 4 come out, you see the level 3 tuner or something, you're
Yeah,
just
you're like, I have to stop this. You don't even
right.
let it. Like, I don't know what you're about to go into, but just the threat of it being a Black Rose Dragon,
Or
I have
Sam
to stop
Destroyer.
this.
You know,
Yeah,
it's like either way
I
you're in
have to
trouble.
stop you. Yeah, no, it's really good effect. It pops everything on the board. We haven't even seen this thing at full power yet. There are some decks that can make this on your opponent's turn that haven't been released in Duel Links yet. So if we ever get those, oh lord.
What's crazy is its secondary effect that never gets used is actually really good too.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
banish one plant type monster from your graveyard, then target one defense position monster your opponent controls, flip it to target face up to attack position, and if you do, its attack becomes 0.
Everyone forgets that effect exists. I
Yeah,
forget that effect
we saw it in
exists.
a tournament once, and Raya was like, "Wait, what just happened?"
Yeah, because I didn't see the effect go off, and then I was like, huh, that was weird. And then the effect went off, and I was like, what? What's happening right now?
Yeah, it's amazing. So it rarely gets used, but when it does, it's very devastating.
Yeah.
Next one, this is a good one too. It does have a drawback in that you have to use a non-tuner light monster, but Michael
Mm.
the Arch Lightsworn, a great effect.
I think also it has an advantage of light being one of the most dominant attributes in the game.
Hmm.
Light and dark, both. That's why you see a lot of light imprisoning mirror, dark imprisoning mirror
Right.
play. And of course, light swords can easily make this. Blue eyes can easily make this as well, which is really crazy for them with their white dragon.
Hmm.
Really good effect. Pay 1,000, banish a card,
Yeah.
which is really good for hard to remove monsters again, like the Sun Saga or anything like that.
Right.
It's just really good at getting rid of them, just
Because you're
coming in into your
banishing and
hand.
not destroying, so that's the whole
Yeah,
thing with the Sun Saga.
yeah,
You
and
can just remove it;
they
it's
can't stop
gone.
from happening. Yeah,
Yeah.
it does still target. It's still heavy to do that, and you get a little bit of recovery. You get when it gets destroyed, you get to shuffle your light swords back. You're usually not relevant. Light
Right.
swords don't want to put cards back in; they want to mill cards out. But occasionally it'll help people out.
All right. We got to move to another deck here since we had so many cards that we wanted to recommend. Okay, so we're moving on to the level 8s here. We did bring up the Dark End Dragon just because it's getting used in Infernities, and
Mm.
it does have a requirement that it has to be dark monsters, but um, that this one's pretty nice because it sends to the grave. Now it does target, but it just sends to the grave rather than
Yeah.
destroying.
Also before I forget, Michael, I'd say lower recommendation for that one.
Oh, okay. Low
Yeah.
recommendation on that. If
Yeah.
you're playing Light Sworns, you're gonna
If
get
you're
it.
playing Light Sworns, you should definitely get it, but otherwise, low recommendation.
Yeah.
Dark and Dragon, similar boat, kind of a low recommendation. Yeah, like you said, Infernities can play it, but also Blue Eyes can play it with Cosmo Brain. They can Cosmo Brain in one of their tuners, and they can make this very easily. And yeah, that's pretty much the reason you use it. It doesn't destroy Sins to the Grave. Again, another out to monsters that protect. Again, like the Sun Saga, this is another way of being able to do that. I have seen people literally lose or win games based on if they have this in their extra deck.
Right.
So any deck that can make this with a dark type and a level 8 access, you should have at least one of these. But
Yep.
if you don't, if that's not one of the decks like you main or it's hard for you to get into there, don't worry about it too much.
All right. The next level 8. This one doesn't see as much play, but it's still a good level 8. Level 8s are just weird to go into. We don't have a
Yeah.
lot of decks that go into them, but if you can get into this level 8, it's pretty good. And that's Scrap Dragon.
I would say this is probably the only one I'd give like a medium recommendation, and that's exactly what you said. It's just hard to get into level 8. It's
Right.
really hard to get into level 8. But if you do get into level 8, it's probably the card that you would see the most played would end up being the Scrap Dragon. Is extremely generic and has a really good just generic effect that in general is good. Pop one of your cards, pop one of your opponent's cards, which could even be like good for you, being able to pop one of your cards, or if you have a card that cannot be popped by monster effect but can still be targeted. For example, the Onimaru that we'll talk
Hmm.
about later. You could select Onimaru, select another opponent's card, and you pop your monster, your opponent's card. Call it a day.
Yep.
So pretty much the best level 8. If your deck can make level 8s, you need this card. If you just can't make level 8s, which a lot of decks just can't, then it's irrelevant.
Right. All right, moving on to level 9. These two are both really good. We'll start with Vermilion Dragon Mech because we were talking about a little bit earlier how you can go, Coral Dragon and then go into the
Mhm.
Vermilion or whatever. This is good because you banish a tuner from your hand, field, or graveyard. So a lot of options there. And then target one card on the field and destroy it. When this comes out, you
Yeah.
see it in Blue Eyes. They start going through their play. They start, the alternative dragon, they pop, and then they go into Vermilion Dragon and they pop, and
Bam, bam, bam. And
it's
then I just
just,
started blasting.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what this card is good at.
Yeah, no, I mean this is definitely recommend everyone have this. It's the best level 9. Let's just be honest, it's the best level 9. And level 9, surprisingly, is a level that a lot of decks get into. Obviously, Blue Eyes can
Hmm.
get into it very easily, but it's crazy how many decks can actually make Vermilion Dragon Mech and end up using his effect for good. And you only use his effect once or twice usually before the duel's over or he's dealt with because he's just
Right.
such a threat at that point. Also, it doesn't have the drawback. Like once he uses effect, he can still swing, and 2700 body is very, very solid. Not
Right.
very many things beat 2700 body.
Yeah.
So very good card. Definitely should pick him up. I think the box he's in isn't even that bad, if I'm not mistaken.
It
So yeah,
is
quickly to have a
Blazing
team.
Rose. There you go.
Yeah, so you're gonna get Black Rose and Vermilion Dragon Mech at the same time. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Next one is good, but it's hard to make.
Hmm.
A lot of decks have a hard time getting into it. There's some that are better than others because it's two or more tuners and one non-tuner monster. But when it hits the field, you know it.
God, now this is a
Quarion
boss monster.
Gondrax. Yeah. Yeah, this is a
Yeah,
boss monster right here.
crazy effects in getting the three banishes from anywhere. Crazy effect, and when it's actually dealt with, it can summon from the extra deck, including your opponent, or not in the extra deck, the
Banish
banish
pile.
pile,
Yep.
including your opponents, which is insane.
So
Really amazing
you
card.
banish their boss monster, and if they deal with your Quarion Gondrax, you get
Yeah.
their boss monster.
This is another one where it's like, it just depends on if your deck can make it or not.
Yeah.
Obviously, Crystron's, you need this, but other decks, you might
Performa
want
pals
to, yeah,
make it.
before Pals, yeah. Some decks can do Labyrinth Builder into Deep Sea Diva to make
Yep.
this as well, which is, yeah, very relevant combo. And I think as synchros kind of continue to grow, I think you might start seeing this being more relevant. Because otherwise they would have to just stop supporting synchros and what, are we going to support XCs? Come on, that's not going to
Right.
happen.
Come on now. Don't be
But
silly.
we'll kind of see how that goes. But yeah, Corion, really, really good if you can make him. He is just ridiculous. You should at least have one copy, I feel.
Yeah. Level 10, we did have an honorable mention, right?
Deskbot Jet, let's
That's right. I don't have it. I'm
go.
sorry. But if you want to explain that one a little bit.
Yeah, I mean Deskbot Jet, he's some people use him. I think we've seen Karakuri use him a little bit in some other decks. He literally just pops himself to pop another one, kind of in the same thinking idea of Dire Wolf that came out. Obviously, making level 10 is a high cost, but some decks just can easily do it, so it's not that huge of a deal to them. But it's not. It's like a normal, so you probably already have like 20 of them in your box. No reason to really bring them up. And then the other one was High Gust King Alexander, a DDD card.
Oh, that's the
Level
one. Yep.
10.
Yep.
The only reason that you would have him is if your deck can make a level 10, you probably want to pick him as your generic level 10. He's just a 3k vanilla beater in any deck that's not DDD. But if you look at the other level 10s, they are either Deskbot Jet, extremely memey, or have like question mark attack points, and they have
Right.
some weird recommended. Their
Right.
level 10s are just weird in this game. So he's the
Yeah.
only one that's just like, at least you have like a 3k beater. That's a respectable beater, but not good enough to recommend
All
because he's
right.
in that store.
All right. Level 11. I just love this card's name. Star Eater. Boom, boom, boom. That thing is just an awesome looking card.
Yeah.
It's really the only level 11 worth going into, I think.
Yeah, and really good. I highly recommend it. For people, obviously level 11 is hard to get into, but if you can make it, this card just swings unaffected.
Yeah.
It just comes out and it's like, I don't care.
Well, it can't be negated. The summon can't be negated.
The summon cannot be
When
negated. That's not.
summoned, cards and effects cannot be activated. And if it
Yeah.
attacks, it's unaffected by other card effects until the end of the damage step.
Yeah,
So
it's a really good card, really good. It's like if your opponent has Sphere Creeper, for example, and you have a way to get into your 11, you can end the game quickly. That way, I've seen people do it. In any meta that it is relevant to making, when my Akashis were not relevant, but they were new. A lot of people were playing it. You'd see a lot of Star Eater in the meta, so people just have to be memorable in it. If we get any deck that can turbo out level 11, you'll see this guy as an a
Yeah.
finisher to a duel
He
way
is
more
a
often.
Star Eater. It's such a great card just because of,
Yeah.
because some cards you're kind of like trying to like make the association between the effect and the name and the card art.
Yeah.
This one is just all in one. It's great.
So what do? I eat stars. Oh,
Okay.
that's cool.
And our last recommendation, well, where are we with Star Eater? Was that a medium or a high?
I think a high recommendation.
High,
He's just good. Like if your deck can make him, you're gonna make him. Even if your deck can't make him, I'd still have him in case your deck can
just
make
in
him later
case
down
there comes a
there.
deck
Econ
that
take or
can.
something, man. This card's insane.
Yep. All right. So level 12, Assault Blackwing Onimaru, the Divine Thunder. Thunder.
God, he looks so cool. Look at him, dude. I wish I was on Imar. That's the
Oh
only
wow,
reason I
yeah.
recommended him.
Because
GG.
he's like a Blackwing, but he's like a cybernetic Blackwing. He's
Yeah,
like part
he's got
robot,
different
part human,
wings
part
and
bird.
it's so cool. Yeah, this is a level 12. It's a generic level 12, which a lot of people didn't realize. And funnily enough, recently has had an easier build path into because of Coral Dragon being a synchro tuner. A lot of people can make, for example, Infernity can make Bryo Dragon, wipe the board, Coral Dragon, then synchro off those two and get the amazing effect. And even if you don't get the amazing plus 3,000 effect at the end, that being you have to have if both monsters were synchro monsters when you made them, the fact that he cannot be destroyed by card effects
Yeah.
in and itself is still good. So if you go Coral into anything else that makes him, you have a 3K beater that cannot be destroyed by card effects. That's really, really good. So
But
pretty
going up
relevant,
to
I would say.
6,000 attack is also amazing.
Yeah, that's OTK territory. If you can
Right.
make it, you're probably winning the duel already. But even if you can't, just being
Yeah.
able to get into there and having the
Right.
anti-destruction effect is really, really strong. Obviously, Blackwings, when they play the level reduction build, this guy is actually their boss monster, which is how it should be. But any other deck, it's still generic. It's still good. I'd still recommend people. And it's an R rarity card, so it shouldn't be that bad to get.
Right. So keep in mind that most of these are generic, and that was the point behind this. Some of them do have specific summoning conditions, but there are probably ones that are specific to an archetype that might be better in certain decks. But like Shiranui cards, we didn't really
Yeah.
go into that or like
Yeah.
Karakuri cards. We wanted to keep these generic so that you can use them in your auto duel decks. You can use them in different toolbox decks. Just things like that. So these are all good staples to have that we can recommend so that no matter what deck you're building, you can try to throw these into. Whereas maybe a Shiranui deck, you wouldn't be doing that.
Right.
The Shiranui synchro monsters. So keep that in mind. And I hope you find this video helpful because we love making them just for you personally. Whoever's watching this video right now, this one was for you. All right.
There you go.
So make sure to get into our Discord because that's where we host all of our tournaments and they're free. And they have cash prizes. And the Discord is free, always will be. So get in there, and we'll announce the tournament. You can sign up for it and have some fun with these synchro staples that you're gonna go get. And we have a new player help channel in there where if you have questions about these synchro staples, you can go in there and say, "Hey, which one is best for me? This is the deck I'm playing. Help me decide what to do." And we'll be more than happy to help you.
Star Eater.
Star Eater.
He's so cool.
All right. We're going to get out of here. We'll see you next time. I'm Circus. That's Rye.
Bye, YouTube.
All right. See ya.